So welcome to this event about building a successful creative startup. I'm going to read the bio of our speaker. I think you're in a great treat of someone. The reason why I asked her to come to do this, because she's, in my humble opinion, the few jewelers who I've met in the trade who started their business from scratch. I mean, from scratch, I mean, like, not to put anything bad, it's like, no rich husband, no rich families, like through grit and perseverance and just business acumen. And I thought that is really important, because when I started as a jeweler, I was got very very upset and just really was just going around in circles and just scratching my head, like, how do I survive in this world without having any social capital or any finances to do this jewelry trade, where you need a lot of there's labor intensive, it's very labor intensive, and also very financially intensive as well, because depending what type of jewelry you do, and I do mainly fine jewelry, precious metal jewelry. So anyway, so the person I'm going to introduce is Harriet Kelsall. It's one of the most respected bespoke designers and business trailblazers working in the UK jewelry industry today. She has won Retail Business Woman of the Year, Retail Woman of the Year, and one of the Institute of Directors magazine's 6 women who have most changed the business world. And she is a freeman of the Worshipful Company of Goldsmiths and of the City of London. Harriet is passionate about helping creatives, businesses flourish, and has written a book about how to start one called The Creative's Guides to Starting a Business, How to Turn Your Talent into a Career, which won at the 2019 Business Book of the Year Awards. She mentors other creative startups and is a successful dyslexic. She is an inspiration to others whose talents who lie in creativity. That is a lot there, and I'm very excited to introduce her now. So please, Harriet, please take the stage.
Thank you very much. That's a very kind introduction, Kassandra, and lovely to meet you all. Well, not quite meet you all, but you know what I mean. Well, I just did jazz hands. It's quite funny, something about the camera distance, isn't it? I just really easily do jazz hands on here. Anyway, it's really nice to be here talking to you all, and thank you for the invitation, as I say. Now, hopefully this sharing is going to work. So yeah, today I'm going to give you a very brief introduction about my business so that you know what I do in my day job now. And then I'm going to talk about my story, about who I am and how I started and grew my business. And then I hope to pass on some tips that I've learned along the way, which I'm hoping will show some of you either starting or growing your businesses, maybe give you some ideas about how to turn what you do into something bigger. And the tips are partly from my own experience and partly by looking at the success and repeated issues in the startups that I've mentored and interviewed for my book that Kassandra already mentioned. So that's kind of all gone into my tips that I'll share with you a bit later. I think I'm going to talk for around about 35, maybe 40 minutes. And then after that, I'll be really happy to answer any questions at the end. So yeah, save them up. And I won't be able to look at the chat as we go along, but you can always put them on there, whatever Kassandra wants you to do with them. And then we can look through questions and stuff together at the end. Yeah, so brief introduction. My business is called Harriet Kelsall Bespoke Jewellery, and I started it 22 years ago from my kitchen table with really not a lot. And I've now got a team of 40 employees, including 20 designers and 7 goldsmiths and craftspeople in our workshop. And the business is entirely design-led, even in the shops. We don't employ any sales staff. We prefer the expertise and quality and craftsmanship to sell the pieces on their own, rather than to sort of push things at people in a sort of classically salesy way. And over the years, sorry, whoops, flash of the wrong slide there. Over the years, we've developed a good reputation in the industry, both for pioneering reachable, proper, clean sheet, bespoke jewelry design, and also maybe for breaking the mold of what people expect a high street jeweler to be, and also for our work within the area of jewelry ethics. And we work internationally all the time over Skype and MS Teams, and we've got 3 locations. We've got a jewelry centre in North Hertfordshire, in the countryside, where we have a big jewellery design studio, a shop, a workshop, an educational area, and even a small jewellery themed garden, believe it or not, and a coffee shop where people can have a nice slice of homemade cake while they watch the goldsmiths work. And then we also have a smaller but lovely design studio and shop in central Cambridge. And then we have another small, newer studio in London, in Primrose Hill. And we only opened it 2 years ago, but so far that's going well. And we focus on bespoke jewellery, which for us means individually designing and creating one-off pieces that are made especially for people, which are designed to suit their lifestyle, their budget, their style. And we also do lots of, redesigns and reworking of jewellery. So lots of people come to us with something they've inherited to reuse the materials to make something more to their own style. It's a bit like glamorous recycling. I'm sure some of you are already doing some of that. But bespoke is over 95% of what we do. So we're nothing like the retailers that sort of do a bit of bolt-on bespoke. Bespoke is our main thing. And so we really specialise in this area. Happily, the vast majority of the jewellery that we melt down and remake has a lot of lovely, happy sentiment behind it. And most inspirations that we share with our customers are very positive and lovely, but there are occasional exceptions. Like a few years ago, when I was asked if I could take all of the jewellery that had been given to a customer by her, and I quote, lying, cheating idiot of a boyfriend, and melt it down in front of her while she watched to make it into a lovely chunky dress ring for herself, symbolising her new independent start. So we did this, and happily, by the way, she's more recently come to us for an engagement ring and wedding ring to the right bloke, but she still wears the original one that we made to remind her that she's a strong and independent woman who can make her own choices. And then another lady recently came to us with all of her inherited jewellery, and she said, I want you to make it into new pieces because then it won't remind me of my cow of mother when I wear it. So yeah, each to their own, but as I say, mostly it's usually quite happy sentiments behind it all. So yeah, we also have a ready to wear collection online, and we do lots of events in our jewellery centre. And Kassandra mentioned a few of them. We've been lucky enough to win lots of national awards for design, innovation, retail, ethics and business. And we helped to pioneer fair trade gold. That was always very important to us, and we were the first company in the world to be successfully audited by the Responsible Jewellery Council and licensed to sell fair trade gold. So improving ethics and responsibility in the jewellery industry has been a big driver for us as well. So yeah, that's what we do. So my story, I made my first ring when I was 4. I was surrounded by art and architectural sketches and stuff like that on the walls from an early age, because my parents were both very creative, but in very different ways from each other. So I learned how to make jewellery at first from my dad, who was a very talented hobby jeweller. It was something he did in his spare time to make bits and pieces in silver. He was really an NHS doctor. And so sometimes he used to make and sell a few bits of his jewellery to help make ends meet, because he worked for the NHS. So I used to sort of watch him, and I was very interested in watching how that worked. And when I was 4, I asked my dad if I could make something, and he said, yeah, great, just draw what you want to make and we'll make exactly what you draw. Because this is design, it's not sculpture. So I drew a huge ring with a big purple stone, and I had a rabbit on one side of the ring and a cat on the other, obviously. And he said, right, well, now you've drawn it, we'll make it. And so with his help and guidance, I actually made it in silver with a massive purple amethyst, which was very cheap, but I thought it was really, really valuable. And he helped me with the blowtorch, holding it behind me so that I didn't set fire to the house. And he also helped me by engraving the rabbit and cat drawings that I drew on the side of the ring. But I did the rest all myself, and I loved it, and I was absolutely hooked. So I soon started experimenting with my own jewellery making, just in my spare time. And I think I had a very early entrepreneurial spark, because when I was about 8, my sister and I made some twisted silver sleeper style earrings, and we sold them to our friends for £1 a pair, as we bought the wire and we made these earrings. And we got into really big trouble at school because they sort of clipped onto your ear and made it look like you had pierced ears when you didn't. And so all of our kind of 8-year-old friends were sort of going home looking like they'd had their ears pierced behind the bike shed with a compass. So the parents weren't very happy about that, and the school told us off. So my entrepreneurial spark was quickly squashed. But when I was about 11 or 12, an artist friend of my mum's, she saw the jewellery I was making and offered to sell some of my little beady earrings on her stall at Covent Garden Market. And I remember she used to pretend to be really cross with me that I sold more earrings than she sold paintings. But actually, she was an amazing creative mentor to me, if you like, in those couple of years. And it really showed me that sometimes you can learn a lot from people that aren't doing exactly what you're doing, but who are just interesting and in different fields, which is something I'll talk about later. But I still very much look outside the jewelry industry for an awful lot of my inspiration, rather than trying to copy what other people in the jewelry industry are doing. So yeah, my mum encouraged me not to follow a creative path because she was always worried about paying the bills. Very sensible. She'd had a quite a difficult first marriage, and then she'd found herself on her own in a world back in the era where it really wasn't supportive of that. So she knew that financial independence was really important. So I now know that I'm dyslexic, but it wasn't really invented back then, and not many schools diagnosed or really recognised it. So I just focused on subjects that required less writing, and I was good at fine art, and I was good at maths, and I was just about okay at science, which kind of seemed to join those things up. So I listened to my mum's advice. Jewelry to me was just a hobby, like it was from my dad, just something you did occasionally at weekends, didn't ever consider it as something I could actually do properly. And I studied industrial design, which is a bit like product design. And it was as creative as I could get within something that was actually a BSc. It's like a sort of sciencey subject, really. But I learned loads about design and materials and hands-on making. They had a lot of workshop stuff in that degree. And after that degree, I was recruited into the computer industry at a university leavers event. I was lucky to be educated back when you got your fees paid. Christ knows how people do that now. It's a bloody nightmare, as I'm sure some of you know. But luckily, I didn't have a loan for the tuition fees. Yeah, I went into the computer industry, and computers were really basic back then, and not many people were using them very often. I thought it'd be interesting to go and look at designing user interfaces, but it turned out it really wasn't. But anyway, all this time I was making jewelry for myself. I always had lots of rings on. I was one of these people that had rings on every finger and loads of jewelry at that stage. And I used to make lots of jewelry for my friends and family, like I would give them presents and stuff. And I began slowly taking on commissions. And I then converted my tiny shed in my garden in North London into a sort of mini workshop with a junk shop table. I hacked a little semicircle out of, and I had a few tools. And I like to say that the shed was fully ventilated, otherwise known as bloody freezing. So I used to have to work in a hat and fingerless gloves. And a few years later, I just began to get the feeling that I wanted to find a way to be much more creative in my working life, because I was in the computer industry. I didn't know why or where I got the idea from. I didn't really know people who started businesses or anything like that. And so I just had this little burning thing inside me that it felt like a burning secret at first. And I began to privately consider different options, because I was creative in other ways too. Like I loved illustrating, I loved making pottery. I was thinking, what can I do? Because I was worried about going into jewelry, because I knew it was really competitive. And I knew every craft fair I went to, there were like hundreds of jewelers selling stuff really cheaply in a way that I thought, you can't pay your bills with those kind of prices. But I just felt this pull to jewelry that maybe some of you will understand, and despite it felt like kind of a really challenging path before me, I decided it had to be jewelry. And for some reason I didn't even consider working for another jeweler, because I had no jewelry career to speak of. I had no experience. I just made some stuff in silver a bit, and I think I knew I wanted to work in a way that was different, and I wasn't going to fit into a mold that existed in the jewelry industry. I kind of knew I wanted to innovate in some way. And so the first thing I decided to do was to take the jewelry I was making already a bit more seriously in my spare time, to see if I could sort of do more with this hobby on my own. So I learned a few more advanced techniques from books. We didn't have, you know, the YouTube and things like that back then. So if you wanted to learn, you either had to be able to afford to do a course or you had to learn from books, and from teaching myself. So I used to potter about on my bench for hours, teaching myself new techniques. And I used to look at jewelry and work out, like in shops and stuff, and work out how it might have been made, and then try and sort of trying to copy it. And I would melt down the same bits of silver and reuse them again and again. And I also used to really enjoy making up new designs from scrap bits and pieces of twist and stuff. And I used to make these sculptural pieces. And I looked at creative things that were happening in other industries for inspiration. And maybe had it been available, then I'm sure I would have learned loads of techniques from YouTube. Brilliant. But I felt like a sponge, just hungry to soak up everything about designing and making jewelry. In the meantime, I'd got quite successful in my day job, and I suddenly sort of found myself as in a management role at this company called Tektronix UK in the computer industry. And it taught me a lot about how companies work and about, you know, how to interview people and that kind of thing, which was later going to come in really useful. But it wasn't a small job, so I was really busy, and I often didn't get home from work until 9 o'clock at night. But in my spare time, I was making jewelry in my shed for myself and for my friends. But I always knew it was a hobby that I wanted to grow into something more. I wanted to be able to make jewelry up to a professional standard. You know, I didn't want to make craft fairy pieces. I wanted to make really good stuff. Now, I used to go up there at 9:30 in the evening and work for a couple of hours before bed. But the long hours weren't a problem because I was full of creative energy and drive, and designing and making jewelry made me feel alive. Another thing I've learned over the years actually is that some people quite resent working hard like this, but I think when you're creative, it's kind of like a hunger that you have to satisfy, and so working late into the night is actually quite easy when you're sort of feeding a creative passion. So anyway, I started taking commissions on for friends in a slightly more formal way, like I'd sort of sit down with my sketchbook and talk to them. And I kept doing this and gradually sort of built a sort of little portfolio of work. And then about 6 or 8 months later, I realized I had a waiting list of over 30 people, none of whom I really knew. They were just sort of friends of friends who wanted me to make something for them. And I thought maybe I could actually make this work as a business. Because back then, it was really hard to get jewelry designed and made for you unless you had masses of money. You might have a bloke with a workbench, usually was a bloke, who could make something to your specifications, but that wasn't the same as having a properly qualified designer or creative person, look at what you wanted and actually work with you and your ideas to make something really special but affordable for you that was actually designed for you. And that kind of wasn't really a thing you could do unless you had loads of money. So I suppose I saw a gap in the market for jewelry designed and made to suit a wearer's style, personality and budget. And crucially, it wasn't being done anywhere at the time, really, which is an important point that I'll come back to in my tips, and I come back to in my book again and again. Right, where are we with the slides? Oh yes, here we go. So yeah, I pinched the word bespoke from the tailoring industry. It was a word nobody really used much other than tailors at the time. But my grandmother was a tailor during the war, and I'd also worked for Next for Men as my Saturday job in my teams. So I knew that word. Because they used to do bespoke suits, Next bespoke suits. And believe it or not, Next was actually quite cool back then. I know that's hard to believe to those of you who are younger than me, but honestly it was. How things have changed. But I used to worry that the previously unused phrase bespoke jewelry might sound a bit pretentious, but it stuck and certainly caught on now 20 years later when the word bespoke has become so much more common in all kinds of ways. So one day I heard from a customer in Scotland that she'd been recommended to me by another local customer, and she'd been let down by a shop and wanted an emergency tiara at very short notice. Now, we've all been in that situation, haven't we? We've all had that situation. You're going out, oh my God, I've got no tiara. I mean, there's a problem that I have all the time. But yes, she was in this situation. And I knew about this thing called the internet from my time in the computer industry, which was a very new thing. It was about, must have been about 1996, 1998. And there were hardly any websites back then. I had a very basic website since 1996 with about 2 photos and a phone number on it. And this is this is, those of you, for those of you that are younger than me, which is probably all of you, this is what computers looked like back then. Oh, it brings back memories. So yeah, anyway, I needed to show the customers some pictures of tiara options, but she had her wedding on Saturday and it was Thursday, and she'd been let down by someone that was supposed to be making this tiara for her, and there wasn't time for me to post them to her. There's no, you know, back then you couldn't just text a picture and it was there. You know, the reality of transmitting an image to somebody was, it was snail mail, or, you know, something that was way beyond normal people's means. But you couldn't attach pictures to emails or anything back then. So that wasn't much use. So I said to her, listen, have you heard of this thing called the internet? And she said she thought her friend's boyfriend had this internet thing on his computer. So I said, well, if I do some sketches of the things that I can do for you, and I put this sketch onto this certain address on the internet, it'll take me 4 hours to scan it and upload it to this thing called the internet. But then you can go to your brother's house and you can put in this exact massive long stream of random numbers, and then you'll be able to see these pictures, and then you won't have to come and see me, and then you can choose one, or say a bit of this and a bit of that. We can talk over the phone, and I can make it for you and get it in the post in time for your wedding on Saturday. So she was like, right, I'll do that. And so and you know, it all just worked really well. And I discovered that the internet was quite a good way to show customers pictures without them having to come and see me. And so I suddenly realized the market was huge. And I kind of had this feeling that this internet thing was quite good and might just catch on. And so also I realized that although this customer had come to me via word of mouth, I could use the internet to advertise my bespoke jewelry service, if you like, to other people, and to help people recommending me to pass on my details. So I'd seen a gap in the market, as I said before, for reachable bespoke jewelry that was a new thing. And I'd seen a new route to market via the internet. And very few jewelers anywhere were offering any kind of commission service at all. And I don't think at the time there were any other jewelers on the internet. I couldn't find anyone when I looked. I'd already assessed there was an interest from customers in what I was doing from my waiting list. So my market research, I guess, had been built from trying it out in my spare time, because I was still working full time. And looking back, I mean, that's kind of the best market research you can do, really, is while you're working full time, try stuff out and see what people like, what sells, what works. So when I was 27 in 1998, I decided to leave my job and to properly make my jewelry business work. My boyfriend at the time and I simultaneously decided to move out of London and get married, because there's nothing like doing everything at once. And he was sort of struggling away at his job. So I started the business with £400 and only the essential tools that I could afford. Where's my next picture? Here it is. This is how I felt. That was me. It's not really me, but that's how I felt. And I remember regularly taking trips to borrow tools from people I'd met, and you know, and a couple of times I went to my dad's to do a job, even though I'd outgrown his basic setup and techniques, because I needed some emotional support and cups of tea while I made something scary. For example, I remember, Christ knows how, but I was approached by a countess, and she wanted me to. She had this huge pair of matching emeralds. Inch and a half pear-shaped emeralds, and anyone that knows about gemology on here will know that they're priceless, really, especially a matched pair. And she had grain set diamonds all the way around the outside, and she wanted me to re-raise a grain and reset a diamond that had come out on them. And it was I mean, it was right next to a priceless emerald, and those of you who know about jewelry will know how scary that was. So I remember taking those to my dad's, not because he could really help with it, but because I was just so scared. And he said, you know, I'll make a cup of tea, and by the time the kettle's boiled, you'll have done it, because it's only a 5-minute job. I was like, okay, and I just did it. And yeah, I was very relieved when I didn't break her priceless emeralds. Anyway, I digress. So yeah, so I was in that kind of weird space. I was lucky to have someone in my family that knew a little bit about jewelry, about basic jewelry making. And most of the people, I just met people along the way. Like I just used to start talking to people at craft fairs or talking to people in jewelry shops. And suppose I kind of started to just get some friends in the industry. That was a helpful thing. So a year or two later, I set up my first studio in Weston in North Hertfordshire, which is near Baldock, because it's in easy reach of London, St Albans, Cambridge and other cities, but it feels really rural and unspoiled. And that's where our headquarters and workshop and jewellery centre is still there now, in a converted Tudor barn now. And I like the idea that people can take a trip out to the country and find us there. And having a place to do my business outside my home was great. And it also allowed me to sell ready-to-wear pieces that I used to make with the leftover bits and pieces. And so people could just come and buy some stuff as well. But for me, it was all about the bespoke. I also actually early on started wholesaling my ready-to-wear jewellery via Liberty department store. I just went in about 3 times until the buyer was there when I went in and talked to her. And ended up with my tiaras because I used to make these beady tiaras in the bridal wear department and some stuff in the jewelry section. And it was hard work getting it in there. And I felt very good about that. But really, when I look back, it was a hard part of my time, because as some of you who maybe wholesale to other places know, you know, these retailers, justifiably because of the rents and wages they pay, mark up what you might sell them something for 50 quid and they'll be selling it for 175, 180 quid, and it feels challenging and it's a lot of work for not much gain. But it also is a huge confidence boost. At the time it was a big for me, like, oh god, I'm in Liberty, and the fact I sort of say that to customers, it always impressed people. So there's a bit more to it than just the jewelry you're making. I guess it was about confidence and it was about experience, and that helped me a bit. But yeah, I was quite pleased a couple of years later when I got to a position that I didn't need to wholesale there anymore and was able to stop doing that. So yeah, now my studios, you can only get my jewelry from me. I don't wholesale anywhere else, just from my website and the studios. And I grew my business by specializing strongly in bespoke. In my case, specializing is a good way to grow a business. And we now continue to be the UK's leading bespoke jewelry design company. And our pieces are reachably priced, not far from the high street engagement rings, for example. But with us, you get to design and make a one-off piece together, and then we make it for you. So yeah, so things continue to grow. I opened my Cambridge studio. Why do we always put balloons outside when we open things? I don't know, but we do. I like balloons. We opened my Cambridge studio in Green Street in 2005, which continues to do well. And then this is our newest design studio and shop in Primrose Hill in London. It's near Camden. And that opened quite recently, as I said. So far, so good. We make all of our jewelry ourselves in the UK, which is an important ethical point for me. So yeah, what have I done here? Sorry, I'm just trying to find my next slide. Sorry, I seem to have lost my notes now. Excuse me a minute while I just find them. That's strange. Sorry about this, flicking around slides. I hope you can see my slides all right. The trouble is with doing these things online is you don't actually know if anyone's really listening. And I often think, I could be completely disconnected now and nobody would tell me. I'd just carry on, wouldn't I, really? Anyway, I've lost my slides now. So I would just, what I'll do now, I was going to just say, yeah, I basically, we've now got a team of 40, as I say. We grew carefully, slowly. I never took on a business loan. Maybe that was a bad thing. Maybe I should have grown faster and done that, but that felt really scary to me. I didn't want, I was never a wealthy person. I didn't want to, be scared about losing everything I did have. And gradually grew it all and made sure that that I took on the right people, and that's a whole other story for a whole other time, to help me grow as the business grew. So I went from doing every single thing myself to gradually having certain aspects of what I do. I used to cut them off and give them to other people one by one, so that when I could trust someone to do, say, my bookkeeping, that was my first employee, Deborah, who's just celebrated her 20-year anniversary with me, which is lovely. And then, you know, then I would take on somebody to help with my jewelry making at the bench. And so I did more of the design and a bit less of the making, because I'm a bit slow compared to how somebody is who's been at the workbench all their life. So yeah, I gradually sort of bit bits off of what I did and grew the business in that way. So yeah, just to give you an idea of the sort of thing that we do, this is the kind of work we do all the time. So, you know, we're looking at, in this case, we incorporate a whole load of the customer's own stones with some new stones. She wanted it to look quite engineering-y with those little clasps at the side. And this was a handmade piece that we made in platinum for her. We also do stuff like this. This was inspired by a delicate rose. And this customer wanted it to be, the stalk to be as important as the rose, because they love the forms of the stalk, which is why the stalk's quite prominent. So that was a rose brooch that was fully handmade. We do things like this, which again was a reworking customers' own stones, and crafted ourselves, and handcrafted that one. This one is something inspired by Lily of the Valley. So I'm showing you these because, you know, I know most of you are jewelers here. And so I know you'll know from looking at this that what we're not about is people coming to commission us in our own style to do a little bit of what we do for them. What we are about is approaching design like designers, like architects, where we slip the style on that suits the customers and that we're also proud of, and make something that's right for them. So all these pieces are very different in style, personality, if you know what I mean. So that's what we do. Here's some interlocking coastline rings. Oh, it's funny, actually, I got someone on Instagram said to me the other day, she'd been going for about 5 minutes. She'd be about 2 years business, really lovely little business, and I've never heard of her. And she approached me and said, I noticed that you've ripped off my idea of doing a coastline ring. I said, I was doing coastline rings when you were in nappies, my love, but don't worry, one coastline is never like another. We won't tread on each other's toes. So yes, coastline rings. So this is something we've been doing for a long time, and you know, jigsawing one ring into the other, always fun. For those of you who've done those, it was a challenge. Yeah, so here we are. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to go on to pass on a few tips. And you know, when I was being given one of those awards that Kassandra mentioned, I was lucky enough to be, there was a talk by Karen Brady, you know, who was the woman that was in The Apprentice ages ago. I don't think she still is, and she's a football manager. And she said to me, you know, someone always leaves a door open for you, and that's why you can be successful. But I have to say, in my career, I've never really felt like that. I never really felt there were any doors left open for me. I had to just kick them down myself. And so, but what it also means is that I'm always really keen to say what I do know, because the only way we can grow as a community of jewelers, as an industry, is to let people stand on our shoulders and reach higher and do better and do more beautiful creative things, and you know, and so I'm all for it. So yeah, so I'm ready to pass on my tips for you. So yeah, and I mentor creative businesses when I can. I've learned a lot from those. I've noticed that that a lot of I mean, I remember somebody started calling me an entrepreneur a few years ago, and I didn't even know what it meant, you know, because when you're creative, we don't go into business thinking, oh, I'm an entrepreneur, do we? We just go, oh, I just want to make some jewelry, and oh, and I need to kind of sell some stuff and buy some stuff. Oh, and before you know it, you sort of accidentally, you go, well, how do I do that? And you look into it, and you sort of get yourself some receipts, and you keep them, and you know, you catalog them. You think, oh God, oh look, I've got a business. You know, you actually sort of you make a business as a creative person in order to just do what you've got to do. It's not like you go in there with a bloody MBA and sort of say, oh, I know about business, I'm going to start running jewelry. You know, you just want to make jewelry, and you just find your way, and you get stuff wrong all the time, and you make mistakes, and you start again, and someone said to me, actually, when I was writing my book, who's a successful author, and I was whinging about something, going, oh, it's really hard, I can't get this bit right. And he said to me, you know what, I've had 5 books published, and do you know why that is? It's because every time I write and I'm not happy with it, or someone's not happy with it, I write that bit again, and sometimes write the whole thing again, and I keep trying until I get it right. And I thought, God, that's exactly like being an entrepreneur, because that's what I've done. you know, all I do is pick myself up and try again. And eventually, if you want to do it enough, that's what you'll do. And so what separates a successful entrepreneur from, you know, someone who isn't very successful is that ability to keep trying and keep changing. Don't just do the same thing again and again. You know, surprise, surprise, it's not going to work. You keep adapting what you're doing and making something better and better all the time, so that you can actually make it. And then when things work, do more of them. It's as simple as that, really, isn't it? But yeah, it's keeping trying. It's never easy. You know, when people like me tell stories, it sounds like the whole thing was easy. Of course it wasn't bloody easy. It's a nightmare. You know, you spend half your life panicking about some problem with a customer, or, oh, I've been overcharged, or, you know, oh God, you know, what am I going to do about this stone doesn't fit? You know, you're just constantly worrying about everything. But actually, every problem you solve makes you stronger. And every time you pick yourself up and give yourself that energy to keep going, it makes you more and more successful, actually. Anyway, I digress. Let me get on with my tips, because that's what you want. So yeah, so here are my 20 tips, which hopefully you'll find useful whatever stage of business you're at. I'm sorry if a few of them may not be relevant to every single one of you, but hopefully you'll find them handy. So yeah, number one, you don't have to know very much about a business to start one and turn it into success. You don't have to have a business qualification. You don't have to be good at money or a computer whiz. You don't have to spend 5 hours a day on bloody social media to build a successful creative startup. You don't need any A-levels, actually, and you certainly don't need to be anything like those characters on The Apprentice that I mentioned. I knew nothing about business, and I started a successful and innovative creative business, and if I can do it, anyone can do it. Second tip, this is an important one, I think. Define what success means to you. Some people feel really successful if they manage to run their business around their family and pay their rent every month. Others don't feel successful until they're a household name. Some link success with having lots of money. Some link success with the imprint they leave behind them for future generations, or the good they bring to the community. And sometimes a lot of people, I've noticed, feel a big conflict between creative success and financial success. So your vision for your own success is important and very personal. And so it's really important to get that vision of success right before you start. Otherwise, how are you going to know when you've got there? And also do remember that it's okay for your vision of success to change as you and your business grow. Mine has changed loads of times. You know, people are often presenters, they have this one vision and they, you know, no, of course they don't. That's bollocks. Nobody does. I mean, I don't think anybody does. And so, you know, it's just about morphing and changing, thinking, oh, that really works and I loved it. Oh, maybe I'll try this then. But you always have that vision and you're always working towards it, but it can change. It doesn't have to stay the same. Yeah, third one, it's usually best not to start a business straight out of education or university. And while there are some exceptions to this, making a success of a business without experience of full-time working life, you know, actually earning your own living and everything, is extremely rare. And it's also hard to know how to treat your future team members, if you're going to have any, if you've never felt what it's like to be a full-time employee. So I'd advise working for a larger company after education for a while rather than a small one. And I'd also suggest that creatives work in a business that will teach them something, but not one that's too close to the field that they want to start up in. So for example, if somebody wants to make cushion covers, I ask them to think about working in a marketing company with a high-end retailer that sells cushions along with other stuff, so that they can get to understand what customers want. It's really, you know, likely to teach them a lot more than working for another small cushion making business. And if they work for another small cushion making business doing a similar thing to what they do, they can easily get stuck in that other person's way of doing stuff. And that can actually be then harder to innovate and think differently, and think of a completely fresh approach. And it's also a pretty unpleasant way to train your mentor to set up in competition to someone that you're working for that does what you want to do. So yeah, that's what I advise people to do. Number 4, if you're thinking of starting a business, make sure you can run a small version of your business in your spare time, as well as working hard in your full-time job. When you start up properly, you'll be working for longer hours than both of these jobs combined to make it a success. So you have to be able to cope with this amount of hard work to succeed, in my opinion. And it also importantly allows you to try different things out with much less risk. I mean, I tried some stuff out in jewelry that was just crap when I think back, and I needed to do it and try it out before I learned that. And then I started, you know, on the right route with just specializing in the bespoke. So, but I did all of that while I was still working full time, so it didn't matter. So yeah, it's good to try things out in your spare time. But remember, important one coming up, check your pricing. Don't sell at prices that you can't sustain. When you're just selling a few pieces for pocket money and as a sideline, you can afford to sell at quite low prices. And so a lot of creatives doing this just take their costs and double them or something like that. And these very low prices might make them think they've got a good market for their work. But actually, when they then go into full-time business and they have to pay their rent and bills out of those markups, as well as their own wages, then the prices have to go up. And even if they manage to sell loads more pieces and do a lot more volume, when they're running their business full-time, the prices might have to go up to a point where customers won't pay those prices anymore. The prices that they started out with were unsustainable. So you need to make sure that you understand pricing properly before you sort of start trying to price things, because otherwise you can get a very confused idea of whether you're going to be okay or not by your unsustainable pricing. There's loads more information about pricing in my book. It's a big area, but it's an important area to understand. Yeah, I mean, we may do what we do for love, but we also have to pay our bills. Yeah, so my next tip is be creative. If you're creative, this part should be easy, but even if you don't identify as a creative, you can still think creatively. Don't do what someone else does, but just slightly differently. Find a real gap in what you do and how you approach the market with it. When it comes to making creative products, you may not need a gap in both of these things, but it helps to have both. In my opinion, you need at least one of those things to really make a sort of big impact. So I think you need a clear new path in some way in order to make sure you can actually pay your rent through your business, or a way to really specialize within your expertise. So today, there are absolutely loads of jewelers offering some kind of bespoke design and making work, but we were the first to bring this to the high street at a reachable budget. And so I didn't just mimic another business model, but I forged a completely new one. Nobody had ever heard of bespoke jewelry on the high street when I started the business. And today, consequently, if I was starting a jewelry business, I wouldn't start a bespoke jewelry business because we've already done that, and so have loads of other people now. So the important part when I started the business was that we were doing something beautiful, but also something new. And I was combining my love of designing and making jewelry with a reachable bespoke design service for the first time. So I was combining two concepts that were previously not combined on the high street. That's why I'm successful. And this links to the next point. For a creative business, simply making things in your own style may work for you as an artist, but it's rarely enough for you to be able to actually make a living, except for the awesomely talented or extremely well connected. You need more than just this. So even for a business that isn't a creative business, you need to find some kind of gap other than your own creative style or personality. But if you want your work to pay your rent, that's what you've got to do. I've lost count of the number of failed jewelry businesses who only try to market their creativity or just try to do what somebody else does, but slightly differently, with slightly different designs or something, and with, of course, a much smaller marketing budget. And that's not going to work. So for many startups who make this mistake, this can really set them back a few years while they figure it out. So, for example, many potters think they can just make lovely pots and sell them in galleries or on Etsy because that's what they see other people doing it. Don't do that. You know, do you really think your pots are going to be noticed in that way? And do you really think they're so sensationally good that their colouring or shape alone is so good that they're going to stand out in an extremely crowded market and make you a living? Probably not. You need a new concept, a new type of pot, which is really different in some way, or a completely fresh way to sell them, or a way to combine them with technology or harps, maybe not harps, or something completely random that takes them to a whole new place. And this is the same with jewelry, of course. Don't just start yet another small jewelry brand and try and sell it to the shops. That's what everybody's doing. I wouldn't dream of it. Be creative, do something new with your jewelry talent. I call this part finding your big idea. And there's lots of stories and examples of this in the book, but so I don't want to kind of go on about it, but it really helps if you understand what that really means, what it means, because people go, oh, find a niche, and you think, what's that mean? It's about innovating, it's about specializing or combining things in a new way, or coming up with something particularly some new ethics behind it, whatever it may be. It can be all kinds of things, but it needs an innovative element. So yeah, think about being a particular expert within your specialist area. Think about combining things that have not previously been combined. So tip 8, think about your customer first, and then create your business offering around what they want, not the other way around. If you're creative, you should be able to find a way to enjoy your creativity within what the market wants you to do. So it's not about trying to make the market want what you want to make. Most small businesses make this mistake. They go, but I've made this lovely jewelry. My problem is I don't know about marketing. I don't know how to make people want it. No, the problem probably is that you've made something that the market don't massively want. You've kind of gone the wrong way around. So if you make greetings cards, don't just make a range that inspires you and try and sell it to people. Look at customers. What do they want that they can't get? Work that out. Try and solve that problem that those customers have with a thing that doesn't exist yet. Then market that. So you're already solving a problem. I advise visualizing your customers and really getting to know who they are so that you can figure that out. Yeah, trust your gut. Don't be talked into things for sensible sounding reasons that don't feel right. In my experience, this particularly applies to people you might be working with or working for. I've had loads of conversations with talented creatives who regret taking advice that they knew in their gut wasn't right. If something feels wrong, it's probably wrong. If it feels right, it's probably right, but do some market research to check. Don't expect to be spoon-fed. Yeah, if you want to take a step in your business, but you don't have the skills, don't expect to be spoon-fed with those skills, and don't grudge spending your spare time improving your prospects on your own. After all, it's for your benefit. So you don't have to go on a training course to learn something. If I hadn't taught myself advanced jewelry making skills that I needed, or read a book on bookkeeping in my spare time, I wouldn't still be in business now. So I'd say don't expect the world to spoon feed you with the training you might need. It's not someone else's job, it's your job. There are hundreds of other ways to learn on your own. Read, obviously you've got the internet and that's amazing, YouTube, all the rest of it. Do online course, but also think of different ways to find out what you need. You know, ask friends with relevant skills for little one-to-one training courses. In return, you could do something for them, make them a little piece of jewelry, take their kids out for the day, whatever it may be, or volunteer to help organize something relevant on a charity committee in your spare time. God, you get great contacts and you get a load of experience. This is how you build your startup into something bigger, by growing your skill base. You know, Kassandra said at the beginning, what was it you said, Kassandra? You said something about, you know, knowing people, or you know, the network of people. I mean, the thing is with it is that you can do what you did, Kassandra, and you can make your own network. You know, if you don't have a family business like I didn't, you don't have a rich husband, damn it, you know, you need to make your own stuff. You know, you need to just talk to people and find the things you need to know, like you did, Kassandra, when I chatted to you about something completely different and you went, can I have a chat with you about something I'm struggling with in business? Of course you can. You know, ask people you don't even know. It doesn't matter. A lot of the time they'll help you. And you don't always need to do something in return either, but sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. Look after yourself. It's an old one, but it's a good one. You know, other people won't always understand your hunger and passion to make, build and create things, or to work with jewelry, and how this means that you won't necessarily want to work conventional hours. And it means it can be hard to get your work-life balance right. So one thing that I learned is look after yourself. When you're creating, it's easy to overdo it. But also don't listen to those voices in your personal life saying, oh, slow down, you're working too hard. You're probably not. You're never going to fit what you need to do for a jewelry business into 9 to 5, at least for the first couple of years. But also look after yourself, try and eat well, try and find a little bit of time each week to exercise, all those boring things. Yeah, when you can help other people. I mean, this sounds like a really wanky thing to say. But you know what? It's partly about giving back for the sake of many people who may have helped you along the way. like just by giving you a little bit of advice here or lending you a tool there, whatever it may be. But it's also about making new connections and opening your mind in many ways. And I find, for me, it helps feed my own creativity. You'll find those who mentor others are often surprised how inspiring they find it themselves and how it rejuvenates them to be thinking about a different business, and they remember good things about their own business. So yeah, help others where you can. And small steps, yeah, small steps are still worth taking. They can still get you somewhere. You don't have to rush. It's okay to try things out gradually until your confidence grows, if that's what works for you. You know, I mentioned about pioneering fair trade gold. I mean, that's a whole story of, you know, of taking small steps, asking questions people didn't want to be asked about the ethics of their gemstones and so on. You know, I was put down by people when I tried to sort of publicly trying to humiliate me when I asked them questions like, how did I know their gemstone they were selling me didn't involve child labour? But I wasn't defeated. I just thought, oh, these questions make me uncomfortable. I'll just keep asking them then and make a pain in the arse of myself, because, you know, in the end, keep asking those questions, they start thinking, oh, right, I'll ask my bloody supplier. And before you know it, ethics is slowly looking a bit better. And you ask people these different questions and try and chip it away. So I suppose what I'm saying here is that there's a lot of work to be done. You know, take it one step at a time. Think of a tiny way. You know, if you're sitting here now looking at this thinking, oh, why can't I just get over the next barrier? Why can't I don't know what to do next. It's just not working, but I know I can do this. What do I do? You know, think of a tiny way to chip at that seemingly immovable barrier, and you will find a way to melt it away in time. Yeah, one step at a time is okay. That works for you. Yeah, business awards. I mean, they're a funny old thing. There are probably too many of them these days, but I still think it's really good to get nominated for business awards because you might win them. There's lots of local business awards, and they can come with coverage in your local newspaper or local web you know, platform. So do get nominated for awards, even if you're fumbling around for your first year of business. We've been lucky enough to win a few, and I'm proud to say that these can be great PR. You know, I mean, they really can. You know, that each one has brought us new customers. So yeah, they can be worth doing. And then I never enter award. I have to pay to enter. I think that's wrong. But you know, that there are some awards that you state that they say you need to pay to enter them, but when you phone them and say, I can't pay, is it all right if I enter? They'll say yes. And other most awards you don't have to pay to enter. So yeah, do that. That's a good thing to do. But at some point, you're going to have to take a risk to succeed and get out of your comfort zone. And you can minimize the risk, but with many things, if you don't try it out, you're never going to know. And actually, as I said earlier, you'll learn from your mistakes more than you'll learn from your successes. So don't be too frightened and keep thinking positively. Yeah, number 16, don't always trust the expert business consultants that offer you their services as your business grows. They don't know your business like you do, and you'll pretty much, well, I'm going to say always, you'll often know better yourself. You can waste a lot of money this way. To grow your startup, I can tell you from my experience that these experts don't usually know how to spend your business budget better than you do. And I mean, yes, okay, there are a few business consultants that are decent around the world, but they're few and far between. And mainly, there's a lot of time and money wasters calling themselves consultants. People will approach you saying, if you give them some money, they'll help make your business more successful in various ways, or, you know, get you a better web position, or you know, optimization position, or whatever. Perhaps marketing, PR, strategy, business growth advice, but they won't. It won't really help. They'll take a lot of your money and do a less good job than you would have done yourself. There are exceptions to this, but they are few and far between. And there's also some really good advice out there, and people who will help you if you ask them to. But the really good advice, in my experience, the really good advice and help you can find is something you rarely need to pay somebody called a consultant for. Yeah, I mean, I never consider I can't do something. I don't know why. Maybe it's because, you know, I'm a bit weird, but I've had to overcome all sorts of obstacles, as I'm sure, you know, you'll all know about. I think everyone in business does. I'm dyslexic. I had open heart surgery a few years ago. But for some reason, I still think I can do anything. I think it's because I just keep trying and I won't give up. And so I know you can do anything. Self-doubt will only hold you back. But your inability, if you think that's what you've got, won't hold you back, because you can do anything and learn how to do anything and climb over any obstacle if you want to enough. But just take it one small step at a time if you need to take it slow. And if something won't work for you, maybe you don't want it enough, or maybe you need to change direction and approach it from a completely different direction, or change how you're looking at it. So be prepared to change and flex, as I was saying earlier. To build your startup or to grow your career, you need to work on that confidence. Yeah, 18, while our core business is telling people stories in the form of their bespoke jewellery, these symbols that they wear, we do a lot of other things that support that. Now I've got a team to help me do it. So think around the subject and keep injecting new ideas into what you do as your business grows. Don't sit back and relax. If you want to grow, then always stay just outside your comfort zone at all times. My dad used to say, you should be doing something that scares you at least once a week. And it's actually really good advice. It means you never stay in your comfort zone. So as well as our core business, we sell lovely dress jewellery, run kids jewellery making parties, encourage young creativity, run competitions for kids to design jewellery, run events and open days. We have our goldsmiths working in a glass-walled room so people can have coffee, watch them work. I mean, we just always doing something a bit different. So yeah, those particular things may not be relevant to you, but my point is, always think of new things to do to keep your customers inspired and interested, because there's such a competitive area, jewelry. There's always someone else doing something, so you need to kind of keep ahead. Yeah, the little things. Yeah, you know, I always think tips are really important. So I was thinking, you know, I kind of say to myself, it's the little things that can send a busy business person over the edge. Because, you know, I told the story a while back, but, you know, I was sailing along happily with my good routine a couple of years ago, and at 7 o'clock one night, my 13-year-old son said, oh, I said I'd bring a cake into school tomorrow. And then my 8-year-old says, oh, that reminds me, I have to go in dressed as an Egyptian tomorrow. So yeah, interesting. So try and plan those little things as well as you can, like these little things in business, but also in your home life, because it's one hell of a juggle doing everything. I think that a really good thing to do in a great network like you guys have got here is to share little tips with each other, not just tips that are about business, but tips that are about how you juggle your personal stuff too. I mean, someone said to me a while ago, don't wait till your car fuel tank's empty before you fill it up. Just fill it up when you've got the time, because otherwise it'll always be empty when you don't have time to do it. I mean, it's a stupid thing. That's a stupid little thing. Honestly though, it saved me so much stress over the years. So I quite often go and just fill up half a tank, quarter of a tank, when I've got the time, because I can always be assured that otherwise I'll run out when I haven't got the time. Little silly tip about life. So I always think, share the little things that help us manage the crazy juggle of being a creative person who's also in business and also has a life outside the business. Yeah, and if you do need a last minute Egyptian costume, do what I did and phone a random parent that you've never met from the year above and ask if you can borrow theirs. Worked for me, and I made a new friend too. Anyway, yeah, talk to people, all kinds of people, and really listen and engage with them. Make bridges, make connections, keep smiling, and build a big support network together. Do favors for each other. And like I said, that's where events and networks like this and important communities like you guys, the Black Jewelers Network, are really great, because it's one thing that this network can be about, helping each other. Oh yeah, Kassandra mentioned my book. Thank you for mentioning that. If you think it might benefit, it's called The Creative Guide to Starting a Business. We sell signed ones on my website, but actually it's a couple of pounds cheaper on Amazon, which is worth knowing because every penny counts. And annoyingly, Amazon can sell it for less than it costs us to buy it from the publisher. Oh, Amazon, very annoying. But it's also available on audiobook if that's easier for your kind of mind. And I think if you get a subscription to Audible, you get the first month free. And so you could actually potentially listen to it free on Audible if you haven't got a subscription. So yeah, that might help you, hopefully. And that's it. That's the end. I don't know how long I've been wittering on for, probably too long, Kassandra, haven't I? But yeah, do please feel free to ask any questions. I'm not sure if there are questions already on the chat.
Okay, let me see if we can do the spotlight kind of thing before getting to questions. How do I do this? Lovely spotlight, life spotlight. Anyway, so as I do this, any questions for Harriet? Who would like to go first? Because you know, guys, I can go off on a tangent, so I just want to make you have first dib before I ask.
Tangent, Kassandra, surely not.
I can go on a tangent. Seriously, I could do that.
We love your tangents. They are good tangents.
I don't have any questions. I just want to say thank you very much. It's really interesting.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. That's really good. Glad you enjoyed it.
I do have a little question. So you were saying that on your own, you managed to get extra skills by, you know, trying, which I think is fantastic. I've been doing some of that myself.
Yeah, good.
But I just wanted to know if you managed also to do it for the platinum, or if you found, you know, something in books, because when I look in books, it kind of stops at silver, sometimes gold, and platinum. Nobody teaches it. Nobody writes about it. It's like,
that's an interesting one. Yeah, maybe I should write a book on platinum next. Yeah, I think I did just try it, but only when I could afford it, because of course it was and still is really expensive. But what I did was I talked to people who were already working in platinum, and I got their sort of tips. So I used to sort of work with somebody who used to sometimes do some resizes for me, and he worked in platinum, and because I couldn't deal with the volume of work I was getting in at that point. And so I said, can you give me some tips? And basically what he said to me was, it's exactly like working silver or gold, except it's got a much higher melting point. So you almost need to weld it rather than solder it. And in fact, I never buy platinum solder. I mill out platinum really, really, really thin, and I use that as solder. So it's effectively a weld. That means you don't get that, what you often get with platinum solder is that when you polish it, it looks great, and then you polish it and the solder is softer than the platinum, so you get a little indent, and it's really annoying because it really shows. But if you weld it like that, that helps. That's a tip there. And other than that, it's just a bugger to polish. It just takes a lot more stages of, you know, finer emery, rouge paper, you know, it takes a lot more stages than anything else. But apart from that, it's totally unscary. It's exactly like any other metal. You can do a lot finer detail, you know, like when you get a bit into a thing with silver and gold, thinking, oh, I need the claw to be this thick. In platinum, it can probably be half as thick and still be as strong. So you can take it a bit further. But it's just basically just like same as anything else. Try the weld instead of the join. And just be prepared that instead of taking something up to polishing stage and polishing it in like an hour, you might be doing it for 2 hours the first time and screaming and throwing it at the wall. No, you won't throw it at the wall because that will make it worse. So yeah, those are the main tips. There's not really much else to learn. Is there anything else to learn? I can't think of anything. And working in palladium is exactly the same as working in platinum. So yeah, but my advice on that is talk to people who already work in platinum and just say, you know, if people you don't know, just go out to a jeweler who's I don't know, at a trade fair if they ever exist again, or you know, connect with somebody somehow and say, what are your tips on working in platinum? I'm just starting. And you know what, people are lovely, they'll just tell you.
Thank you very much, Harriet. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Do you know, Kassandra, you said about you going off on a tangent. I think I went off on a few tangents, didn't I? I've taken
No, but I think people enjoyed your stories, because sometimes, if I'm being honest, and this is how I got frustrated with the jewelry industry, they'll be like, so how did you start the business? Well, I just made this signature jewelry and I went to a market, or this journalist just saw my little piece and voomoosh, I am an international jeweler, not knowing that you had investment. People who are big jewelers, I'm not saying their names, they don't even own their company because they gave a lot.
You know, there's a friend of mine, I won't mention any names, there's a friend of mine, I say a friend, I don't know her very well, I met her a few times, and she's got this really successful jewelry company, and I look at her work and I think, between us few here, it's rubbish. I mean, it's really boring and it's it's just not very well designed. How has she made it so big? How? And it took me a couple of years to work out that she'd been to that really posh school. Is it Beadles or Bedales or something, which is the one where all the celebrities go to. And so she'd got her really mediocre jewelry onto these about 5 like massive celebrities just through who she knew. And that's why she was successful, even though the jewelry's shit. And it can be really annoying because you can look at these people and think, oh, you know, what's she doing? I must. And actually, like I said, it's just because they're very well connected or bloody lucky. And most people, like probably us, I'm guessing, you know, we got to work harder at it than that. We've got to find our little difference. We've got to specialize in, you know, I'm the earring specialist. I'm the I do this kind of jewelry, whatever it may be. You know, we need to find something else other than being able to put it on rich people.
Anyone else? Because I'm going to go into a monologue now. So, okay, cool. All right. So the reason why also I want you to come is because it's weird that people in the Black Jewelry Network, even not a lot of here today, but they will watch this, they want to know about the business. And it's weird because when I first gone to jewelry school and I thought doing my first evening course or whatever, I thought I'm going to be at my bench. I had a very romantic view of being a jeweler. I'm just going to be at my bench. I make something, instant gratification. I make this beautiful gold ring and I'll just sell it because it's me and it's handmade and people like handmade and British made. And I think about 6-7 years ago, people was like, best to be British and British made and everything will be fine. And as I got older and in this jewelry business, it's actually the business and less jewelry making per se. And I'm like, oh. And as I get older and I don't have little ones, right? And I read in your book, it's like, oh, people can juggle that. And I don't have, I'm in my 30s and I have little ones. I'm like, how the hell am I supposed to go on maternity leave? Because the government just gives you like in the UK for the, you know, 400 quid a month or something, and babies are expensive. And I'm not saying this jewelry, my jewelry business has delayed me from motherhood, but I'm just like, it kind of is low key, but I see parents do it. And sorry, and that's one part of my monologue. But the other part is just like, I don't want to be a starving artist anymore. I'm sorry. I've done it.
You don't want to be what? Sorry, I didn't hear that. You don't want to be.
I don't want to be a starving artist.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I did my dues. I paid my dues. I paid them. I've done it. So business for me is like, I want to be a hybrid, you know. I want to be a hybrid. Obviously, I want to be creative, but I want to be commercially aware.
Yeah.
Because no matter what image people put on, like, I'm just creative and here's my little sketch, and that does happen. But you know, the iceberg is business, marketing, and business acumen. And so, and the way I'm going to go to my question, you said 400 quid. I believe you. With no investment, right? I mean, with no.
Oh yeah, no, nothing, no loans, nothing like that.
And I hear this from other jewelers who I've met, who started their business quite a while ago. I'm just trying to translate that in 2021. That's number one. And number two, I know in your book, because I've read it, it's about the cash flow. Because what I find difficult, even though I do a bit of bespoke jewelry, so it's easy doing bespoke jewelry is all right for me because I do my 50%.
Yeah.
So that covers mostly basically the gemstones. If I'm doing an engagement ring, it covers the gemstone, the diamond. Yay! And I make a tiny bit of margin on the gold, because people think jewelers set the prices for diamonds and gold, and it's independent. You know, the market dictates the prices. It fluctuates. That's fine. But when starting a new collection, like ready to wear, which I want to be more known for, my ready to wear, because bespoke is very hard, and you guys are the experts. I can't use 400 quid. Just doing the prototyping, it's like a few samples, you know what I mean? You know, and so, you know, so I'm just trying to, X amount of years in the game, trying to figure out how to avoid getting a business loan. And I think that's the only way sometimes just to grow to the next level. So it's just like, for someone today who's like, I've got 400 quid with the pricing, with the marketing, social media, even buying packaging. Like I had a invoice of like nearly $2,000 just for, you know, packaging. And it's just, I'm just finding it hard to digest, like how to not take a loan or investment, in 2021?
Well, I there's a few things. First of all, a few little comments and bits and pieces you mentioned in your monologue, which was a lovely one, by the way. I enjoyed it. Yeah, we were talking about, you know, you start out and you sort of think it's all about making jewelry, but then you realize it may be maybe a bit about business actually. That is the thing really. Now, I know quite a few really good creative jewelers and jewelry designers who have got so much talent but not enough drive, and they'll never make it. Whereas I know I can name, well, I won't because I may be sued, but I can name at least 3, just off the top of my head, designers who are really mediocre, who have made it really big because their drive is ridiculous and they never stop. I mean, one of them, she literally is on Instagram every 2 to 3 minutes, and she's a nightmare. But you know what? She's doing really well. Good luck to her. So her stuff's rubbish. Doesn't matter. She's answering something that the market wants. That's what matters. So that's one thing. The stuff about maternity, absolutely. You know, the trouble is for all kinds of business startups or entrepreneurs, there is no such thing as maternity leave because there's nobody to help you. There's nobody that can come in and work in your job for 6 months or a year or whatever it is. You just got to somehow get on with it. And the answer to that is that you'll just figure it out. You'll figure out a plan. You'll make it work when the time's right.
You breastfeeding one hand, doing spreadsheets on the other hand. Okay.
I've been there. If I may say something.
Yeah.
For me, the way I did it is that I took an au pair. The au pair was £150 a month. She's going to cook, help with the baby, change the nappies, help with cleaning the house, take them out, play with them, blah, 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 blah. When you need to breastfeed, you breastfeed, you know. But the thing is that you're less tired. You have a bit more time for your business, you know, and it's so much cheaper than a nursery, which was £70 a day at the time.
I did something similar. I got somebody to help me. I think it was 4 hours a day. So I paid them an hourly rate, and they weren't very experienced, but there was somebody I thought was great, and they're just a pair of hands to help. So yeah, a little bit of help can go a long way. Yeah. And then you talked about a few things, and I think sorry, my cat's just coming in.
I know the cats. Just before him, the cat tried to sabotage my cat. I have my mom's cat name, and he hates me. Secretly hates me. Oh,
no, she gets so. Look at her. Look at the state of this.
Oh, I love it. I love. They always
needy.
come. Zoom. They always want to know. They always want to
show you her bum or something, isn't she? That's what cats do. Stop it. Right, I'm just trying to pretend. She starts yowling. Don't worry, she's all right. Really, she's just very noisy. Yeah. Now you talked about how to juggle business loans of £400. Yeah, I mean it's true that £400 is probably. I mean this is 22 years ago. It's probably more like £1,000 now. I always work within my means. So the first thing is, you know, if you think you want to do a ready-to-wear collection, don't do the thing that everyone else does, which is to sort of think, oh, that I'll just design some stuff and then everyone will want it, which is a bit like what you said at the beginning you weren't going to do anymore, because you could make a very expensive mistake if you invest a few £1,000s in it. Do stuff you can make yourself on your bench, make it in silver and gold, plate it and tell everyone it's gold. Not sell it obviously as gold, but you know, for your samples, I mean, obviously. And you know, and make sure that you can do it in a way that's within your means. And if you can't do it within your means, then do something else if it's too scary to take that step. And also just do what I said, which was, instead of thinking, I want to do this, I want to be known for ready to wear, how am I getting, it's all about marketing. It's not really. It's actually about solving a problem. So customers will only part with their money if you've got something they want. So figure out what it is they want and solve it, and then make some prototypes of that thing, and then try it out with some people, try it out in different ways, and then only when you know it works, invest a bit more heavily and make some more. So, you know, don't make the same mistakes that we've talked about here, that maybe you made originally and you've put way past that, but you could make them again now within just the ready to wear aspect of your business by not solving that problem first.
But but I'm confused, right? I'm just confused with the last bit, right? Hearing that there are two different philosophies. There's like do something which you love, and do something for the customer, the solution. And I can see both camps. Okay. So when I first started, if I'm being honest, when I first started doing jewelry, my jewelry would be seen more conservative, a bit more smaller, a bit more simple, because I thought, economically, I need to make it a bit more simpler. Number two, I thought the people who'd like it in professional setting, they don't want to be too out there, right? And I tried that and it didn't sell. And then people come to me, and I don't know, just put it out there, I don't know if it's because I'm black and I wear stuff like this, they expect some added cultural ethnicity kind of thing. And it's like, do something with your heritage, or do something with my heritage. Oh, it's too different. And I'm just like, I can't win. So I just like, F this now. I just have to do something what I like. But then I'm hearing you like, what is the problem? What is the solution, right? Because you want to fill that gap. But I'm hearing like, a hoop is a hoop. A hoop is a hoop. A hoop. I like it, or I want to look cool, or it means something to me, or it means something to that person. So how do you get round of like, there's a need when someone just wants a simple hoop or a huggy, or you know what I mean?
Well, probably those kind of things the market's pretty saturated with. If people are asking you specifically for them, then of course you can make them, you know, if you've already got a demand for them, yeah, go with it. But really, you know, I mean, how many hoops are on the market? Do you really need to approach the market with a whole load more hoops? And like I said before, what is it about your hoops that's going to make them stand out? Like in your case, you may well have a brand that's associated with the way you dress and the way you are, that people really aspire to have a bit of that. And that may be why you may find that you get approached for lots of hoops or huggies or whatever it is that you're wearing. And so you can decide to use yourself as a brand, as can anyone, you know, and actually be like, yeah, I'm going to be the face of my brand, and I'm going to sell a bit of me, because let's face it, that us creatives always do a bit of that. It's whether we do it openly or not. So you can decide to go that way, or you can not. You can decide not to do that and instead look at the kind of problem there is in the market, which is what I did. And, you know, I've never really felt that my face was something that people wanted. God, it sounds really self-depreciating, but, you know, I know I never really was like, oh yeah, you know, people are going to want to look like me, whatever I wear, they can wear. And, you know, and I'm not saying that that's what you think either, but I'm saying that actually you probably have got what it takes to do that if you want to. I didn't. And what I did was look at a problem, solve a problem, and keep going and keep building and see where it took me and build it in the right direction. And at first, I think I said to you once ages ago, I think, you know, I think when you're starting a business or when you're making a big change in your business, like it sounds like you are now, you're like massively pushing a boulder up a hill, and everything hurts and everything's hard. And then suddenly you get to the top of the hill and the boulder starts going and you're like, bloody hell, I didn't want it to go in that direction. And you're sort of frantically you're spending the same amount of energy stopping it. Oh God, I didn't want to do bespoke. Why is it so successful? It's really hard. I want to do ready to wear, you know. And so you're trying to kind of manage that boulder, and it's just as hard as pushing the boulder up the hill in the first place. And so you use all the same kind of lessons, but you do it in a slightly different way. So yeah, I think there's maybe some, from what you're saying, maybe there's some decisions to make about how much you want to be at the forefront of, you know, you've achieved a lot, you know, Kassandra, in this world of crazy jewelry times. It says, and you've put yourself out there and people are going, wow, she's cool. Listen to what she's saying. Oh, actually, she looks great. You know, what's she wearing? You know, you've got a lot of what it takes to do that, just in the way you are, not without all of that stuff. You could decide to use it, or you could decide not to. And so it's about, you remember I talked about, you know, your definitions of success. It depends what your definition of success is. What is it that's going to make you feel successful? You know, what do you want to do? And then what problem is there in the market? You know, is it that they need a little bit of coolness from me, or is it that actually I need to specialize in clip-on earrings, you know, price knows something that's a bit different, or a slightly different service that isn't available at the moment, gold plating service for the public, or you know, whatever it may be, anything. And so yeah, it's about defining your success, what's going to make you feel successful, and what is something you're not willing to do, and then figuring it out from there, really taking it step at a time.
I have one more thing, before anyone else? Okay, and because of time and stuff like that. So when I started jewelry ages ago, there was a kind of, well, maybe in the business world, probably like definitely 6 or 7 years ago, and I think people say you got to grind, don't care, no weekends off, da, 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 da. And then I feel, oh, my mental health. Oh my God, I'm not sleeping properly, da, 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 da. And then I was trying to work full time, part time, and when I used to tell people I worked full time, not on my jewelry, just for a job to pay for the jewelry, people would look down on me and not see me as a proper jeweler. And I've took that to heart, because if you're asking to do an engagement ring and you're like, you're not a proper jeweler, you know what I mean? I don't think people are as forgiving because of the price points, of being a jeweler when you're working like full time, just to get money, on there. But the question I'm going to ask you, if you are living within your means and you are working a 9 to 5, how do you be patient? Because it's going to be slower, because it's really hard with Instagram now when brands just pop up and you have these big jewelry people who we probably know. I don't want to say their name just in case they come for me, because I've got nothing to give them. And I know that they're a unicorn company. They've got like venture capital behind them and they're online all the time. How can you just keep forward knowing that these brands who get super invested, they've got lots of investment, and you're still doing your 9 to 5?
I mean, I would say there's a few things there. I mean, one is that those brands are probably not your competitors or my competitors. They're doing a whole different thing. These companies, they have a life cycle. They flourish, they grow, they do this, they do that, and then they have a bit of a decline, and they sell enormous amounts of stuff, and they have huge, marketing budgets to do all this stuff properly. And that's probably not really who you and I happen to be. I'm not saying nobody is, because some people are, and they're capable of getting their business to that level. I would say, I mean, how do I keep, working in my day job, I found that I worked all hours, I didn't have days off, I didn't have evenings off. I just worked all the hours that my job left on my business, because I really, really wanted it to work. And then that meant that I got to a point where I had my waiting list of commissions of friends, and that meant I had the confidence to give up work, and that £400 was therefore enough, because I could take deposits, make the jewelry, get the balance, and juggle my cash flow in that way, because the work was effectively already there because of that work I'd done. Yeah, I could have just gone for it and spent that first 6 months like not doing as much, and maybe work-wise, so that I had more time. But to be honest, the way that I grew the business, I don't think it would have worked like that, because I kind of needed the time myself in my head to get it right, because it does, for me, my kind of brain, it seems to take time to just figure out what's wrong there. And while I was working, I could do that because it worked for me like that. I could try things out with no risk, rather than putting all my risk in and then, well, how's I going to eat? So there's that element of it. What's the other point you raised? There was something else I was gonna go into. What was the last thing you said? You said
people might look at, like, how do you just keep that persistent and resilience in this Instagram world, where people expect brands just to pop up in a year, and when they've got heavy investment?
It touches on another thing that I notice all the time, which is a lot of small businesses and jewelers who are maybe working on their own or with one or two others, as they grow things, they look at these brands and they think they need to be like them. And so you look on their Instagram feed and it says stuff like, it says some beautiful picture saying something sort of slightly abstract, like a sort of deep thought or something, and you think, what? That's not what people want to see from people like us when we're growing our business, people who are actually designer makers. What people want to see is you going, oh God, look at this pile of papers I've got to deal with, but never mind, I'm getting to my bench tomorrow. And then they want to see you going, look at this lovely stone that I'm going to work with. They want to see you. And that's where I talked about a bit before about, if you've got what it takes to actually sell yourself with the brand, that's what people want to see these days. Different from my day. Happily, they didn't want to see me back then. Good thing too. Should have seen how I looked in my hair back, my safety specs on. Which I know. But no, seriously, I think what people want these days is to see you. They want to see who you are. They want to see the daily grind, and they want to fall in love, and they want to be like, oh, I want to support this person because they're really cool. And yeah, look at that lovely ring she's making. They get so into your story and the videos that you're sharing that they want some of that. And so, you know, if you're talking about Instagram and how to grow your business on Instagram in a way that actually can compete with those huge brands, that's how to do it. They can't do that. These big brands are spending a fortune trying to look like small companies. And yet I see small companies going, oh yes, we are, you know, we are looking at our marketing today. Like, who's we? And you're on your own. What are you talking about?
Me, yes, myself, and I.
I'd rather see your cat.
Yeah,
you know?
as well.
Yeah, that's probably how, I don't know. I mean, you know, that's what I think anyway. But I mean, I'm talking to you here, Kassandra. You know, there are other people in the school who may be in a totally different situation. I'm talking to you as a designer maker. That's my advice to you. But, you know, it's different for everybody, you know, and it depends who you are and what you're trying to achieve. As I say, defining your success, looking for a bit of a gap, trying to do something different, rather than just build another ready-to-wear collection and then trying to make people want it and then saying, oh, it's because I'm bad at marketing. No, that's all nonsense.
Just at the end, guys, we were talking for like, I love it. Oh, just as we come to the end, we've got two more questions. I love it. All right, and then we're going to wrap up. Okay, so we have one from Heavenly. Would you like to stalk her? Then we go to Carice. I'm just going to plug in my laptop. Sorry about that, quarantine life. I don't want it to drop off. So there's some questions. Heavenly, do you want to say something?
Hi, yeah, I just wanted to ask like advice for finding work in jewelry design straight after university, because I know there's one other person from my class here, but we study jewelry design at Central St. Martin's, and obviously studying a degree in it, I would hope to, as I come out of my degree, find relative work and be forced into like a retail job or something just to make ends meet.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and how to find job in design?
Yeah.
It's very difficult. There's not a lot of work in jewelry design, which is why a lot of people end up making things for themselves. I mean, there are jewelry design opportunities. We have them at my company regularly. There's one coming up this summer. And there are in lots of other companies, there are design opportunities, but they're few and far between. And when I know when I advertise one of my roles, we get hundreds and hundreds of people applying for them because unfortunately there aren't enough opportunities. So, but if you think you want to make your own business at some point, even if it's not yet, but if you already have a bit of an inkling that that's what you want to do, then actually I would advise not necessarily working in design, but working around design or around the area of jewelry. So for example, you can do all kinds of things. You can get into graphic design for a jewelry company. You can look at organizing events for, you know, one of the jewelry companies and helping with that kind of side of things whilst you're also doing design as well and that kind of thing. So if you think you want to work towards actually starting a business, it's quite a good idea not to necessarily work in design, especially if you can't find an opportunity. But so you may have to, but I don't think you necessarily need to see that as a compromise, because it can be a choice rather than being sort of forced into retail. You could actually decide, well, I don't want to do retail. That would feel like being forced, but what do I want to do that could actually aid my jewelry design? What if I work for a gemstone shop, or what if I work for a company that is a bullion dealer, or, you know, what can I do that's around the area of jewelry where I can also thrive and learn more that will all give to my jewelry design, because you'll learn a lot about cost prices and how things work and stuff like that. So there's always other stuff if you can't find an opportunity specifically in jewelry design, but it is hard. They do exist. They're few and far between. It's a good idea to do something like a foundation course at the Goldsmiths Company if you're able to, which and an apprenticeship if you're able to. Again.
I actually turned that down because last year, well, that was my option. I could have done that and gone into the 5-year apprenticeship. But I'm not the most, I think I'm more of a contemporary jeweler, and I don't fit like into this, I don't know, yeah, more like I my intent was to try and find work for a fashion house, and whether that just be an assistive role around someone in accessories or jewelry, that was my kind of intent. So I'm hoping to gain the experience from a year of work that we get offered, but obviously it's really hard now where you see in your class, the kind of competition that you have is often like people who, you know, have really great skills in 3D digital design or website design, and have degrees in graphic design. There's people, you know, everything under their belt. So it's trying to like keep up with that as well.
Yeah, it's tough. And yeah, I mean, I think, yeah, I mean, God, good luck with it. You've got a lot on there, but you know, you've taken the choice to try and find a role in design. That means you'll find one. But
Yeah.
just remember, you don't have to stick to the conventional channels. You don't have to wait for an opportunity to come up and apply for it. You can just find a company that you like and go and stand on the doorstep and say, is there any chance I can have a quick chat with you, someone?
Yeah.
Before you know, if they like you, they'll be like, oh, she's quite cool. Or, you know, or think of a different way, send them something that's like going to blow their mind, you know, not just a bloody letter.
Yeah.
You know, I've lost count of the number of CVs I get going, hi, you know, I'm an Uber designer and you know, I can really bring you something. I think, oh, bollocks, you know, there's so much. But, you know, someone else turns up on the door with a CV and says, do you know what, I can do this, and do you want me to just make everyone a cup of tea, or, you know, something, just do something different that makes you think, oh, she's interesting. You know, you think of something, a way to approach a company that isn't always the conventional channel that can work.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Good luck.
Person is Carice.
Hiya. So first, thank you for your time and doing all this. I just wanted to ask, because so the way I design, it's not, I mean, not that I have an issue with it. The way I design it, when I do design, it looks simple, but then when I put it into production, I realize that it's not that simple. But, and you know, that's great because it gives me a challenge. But then one issue I had over the years is that there was this one particular collection that I made that, well, galleries kept asking for it, but they were always asking for it on sale or return.
Oh, yeah.
Because of the way it's made, I'm literally the only person that can make it because of all the different things that go into having to make it. So I sort of made this rule where, you know, I'll retire it after a certain period of time so I can concentrate on other things that I want to, because it started to get in the way of other collections that I had in mind that I wanted to make. Then even years later, I still get people asking for it, usually, you know, for photo shoots, etc., etc. So whenever I have this limited edition sort of rule when it comes to that collection. And now I'm sort of wondering, is there a place for just doing, you know, just having certain collections that are limited edition that, you know, I pull them out of retirement every couple of years, maybe with some modifications, and then they're available for such a length of time, then I'll put it back into them again.
Yeah, and if sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I was just going to say, yeah, and if you think about the way that big fashion houses do this, you know, they'll come up, you know, Vivienne Westwood will come up with this like crazy, amazing thing that everyone's like, wow, and you know, she probably gets asked for that quite a lot, but she'll also then come out with a, you know, is it called Red Label or something collection, which is like a muted version of the same thing. So if you've come up with something amazing that people keep asking about, even though it's like really annoying to make and you can't make it cost effective, or you didn't say that, but something like that, or it's just like you just want to move on from it, maybe you can come up with a sort of a muted down version of that collection as a sort of mainstream thing, and you could have the big main pieces as still available, limited edition, or whatever, however it works for you. I often find that in our collections of ready to wear, you know, we might make one amazing piece, and then actually there's lots of smaller pieces that are inspired by that, and it's the smaller pieces that will make the money, actually, not the big ones, because they'll hardly ever sell because they're expensive. And I mean, not expensive for what they are, but, you know, expensive for people's budgets. And so that can work to sort of have different versions of a thing. And yeah, I mean, it's kind of up to you. I mean, it sounds like you've got a demand there that you don't really want, which a lot of people would like to have that problem. But I do know what you mean. You know, if you can't, it's not actually something that's working for you. You want to stop it. It's so annoying because it keeps coming back to you. It's a bit like you in the bespoke, Kassandra. You want to move on from it, it just keeps trying to get you. Yeah, I think that might be my advice. It's hard to advise without, you know, knowing your staff and seeing it. But I think maybe think about other ways of almost like cashing in on the demand that you've got for that in a way that you can and do want to do it. So sort of finding levels and ways that you can still use it in the background while you do your other stuff, maybe. Don't know if that
I've had to learn to say no to the people that ask, because a lot of the time the ones asking it, they just want to put it in their window, and they're not really trying to sell it. They just want to put it in their window to draw the attention. Yeah, so I've had to learn to say no, and actually sort of work out who is actually going to use it properly, and actually try to sell it, or at least use it in a way that gets you the publicity, and who just wants to use it.
Yeah, there's got to be something in it for you, that's no good.
A lot of time when they request me to like pull that one out for a time and make modifications here and there, there's nothing in it for me.
Well, and maybe you need to say to them, I'm really happy to sell you that piece, but I won't do that particular one on sale or return. I will do these 5 on sale or return if you buy this one, if that's what you want in your window. Maybe you just need to not offer that particular one as sale or return, and price it at a point that does make sense for you, and that means you can be asked to make it, and then that's there if they want it, but you've got other collections that hopefully will appeal in some way. I don't know. I don't know if I'm helping much.
Okay, thank you.
It's a pleasure. Good luck. Yeah. Oh, you're muted, Kassandra.
Oh, how much times we've done that through lovely lockdown? You're on mute. Oh gosh. Okay, but no, thank you very much for your time. I think we've got a lot. I think the network, when it's people will see this online as well.
I hope I didn't say anything too awful to go online. I'm sorry if I did. I'm terrible.
No, I feel like we have not.
You managed to beat me.
No. We haven't defamed anyone's character. We haven't done anything which is.
What have we been doing wrong? Quick, let's do that.
No, I just when I'm talking to people in like the community group and the Black Jewellers community group, it's just like, and I think it came up in the report what I've written for the Black Jewellers. It's just that lack of social capital. Don't know who to talk to, and it can be very
yeah. And this is the thing you mentioned at the beginning. Now I say, if you feel you lack social capital, go find it. Go find it. I've phoned people up and who I've heard of, and I say, I just think you're great. Is there any chance you'll meet me for a coffee? Because I'm doing this, and I just think you're brilliant. And I'll tell you what, I'll come and meet you with the coffee exactly how you like it, outside your workshop, at or wherever or your shop or whatever it is. And I will promise I'll take no more than 5 minutes. And it's amazing how many of those people say yes. So, just remember that social capital. It doesn't, like I said, don't expect to be spoon-fed that social capital. Go out and get it. Go out and grab your own social capital. That's what I say.
Yeah. So let's do that. Okay, great. And we can be all successful jewelers, and we can be, not, I'm sure when I have children, I want to give them privileges and make their life easier and stuff like that. We're all aspire to do that. So don't begrudge people who are in those privileged positions, but it's just great to hear from somebody. You don't understand how frustrating it is especially when I went to jewelry school, and you get these really big designers and like, how did you really make your money? Okay, so your husband's rich, or your wife is rich. Okay, great. Why didn't you just say that? Then because it made me have a complex, like I'm doing something wrong. Why am I not successful yet? But yeah, it's a grind, and it's just positivity and resilience, and having your book really, when I feel like, oh, my life, and be a bit more dramatic, I'm like, let me read this book, because it's a reminder, like I am doing it right. And it gives me that gut feeling, like sometimes people do try to sell you. Sometimes I feel that self-doubt when people, if you just take this course, if you just do this, I'm like, no, I can just go straight to the source, someone who's actually done it already, will put work into it for X amount of years, from paying some random business consultant, or go to another £50 business club, monthly club, where they give you very generic advice, and don't realize jewelry is quite niche and very multidisciplinary, because you have the design, you have the technology, you have the creative, you have the engineering, and it's not just like selling a t-shirt. It's like, it's not like selling like a normal product, jewelry. It has that emotional value as well. But thank you. As before I go on for another monologue, I really appreciate your time. I appreciate everyone.
Love your monologues, Kassandra. Keep them coming.
Oh my god, my monologues get me. Probably I'll make better monologues than jewelry. Who knows?
You could sell monologue jewelry. That could be a whole new thing.
Okay, you'll get the jewelry plus a monologue. That is my USP. Great in 2021, a digital product. Okay, great. All right, I'm thinking about that. Okay, great. Okay, thank you very much. Much appreciated. We've got 2 more of these to go, but please tell everybody, increase the social capital, bring more people. Yeah, I love it. Thank you very much, everybody.
Lovely to meet you all, and good luck, everybody.
Okay then. All right.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.